Good morning. It is Friday, January 31st, 2025. This is the House Appropriations Committee. We are back left at about 10:20 on Friday morning to do a couple more pieces of the budget adjustment. As I mentioned yesterday, we're kind of in that stop and start point with things coming and going. This morning, we heard three pieces of potential language that could come out of the FY26 budget because they're in the section C area. And we can make that decision whether we want to bring it in or not. It doesn't affect either budget in terms of other future policy decisions. It's simply whether we want to move things into this budget or wait. And so we have information on all three, well, not much on the education one. So let's just talk about them and see what, if we agree, what we'd like to do about it. So the first one was the education one, which, as we heard from Sean at the Agency of Ed, if they had known about it earlier, it would have been in the budget, and it's simply reducing the dollar figure for state place students by $1 million. Does anybody have an issue with moving that to the budget adjustment? Any reason, Tom?
I don't have an objection. I'm just clarification again. It was originally budgeted for $20 million. This is a revision to 19.
Yes.
But he also said that they were generally coming in at 14 million to 15 million.
That was a little unclear to me. I'm wondering if that's what he's thinking is going to be in the budget for next year.
I think he said 17.
Next year?
So
Okay.
we're talking about or planning on 17.2.
Okay. So I don't know if they have generally overestimated the use. My guess is that is the case, and it all comes out of the ed fund.
But from a future accounting perspective, if it's moved down to 19 for the rest of this year, and then it comes in at 15 or 17, then they're going to come back in the next budget cycle, whenever that might be, potentially with a reversion.
They might.
Or a carry forward or whatever.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they're only going from 20 to 19 as opposed to 20 to 18 or 20 to 17, then they're putting in, or they're much like the Brattleboro piece where they're just reconciling or in advance. But again, is it wrong for me to assume that if they come in at 15 and we budgeted for 19, that next budget cycle, there's going to be $4 billion that has to be accounted for or move forward or reversed. And does that change because this is the education fund and we don't know what?
Yeah. And the thing is with state place students, these are students that are in state custody that need extra help in some way, and they can be out of state placements or in state, depending upon what the needs are. And it can be extremely expensive. If this could be a hard one to budget, because you could get one or two students that you didn't know about.
And so what's the practical effect of moving it down to 19 overall? It doesn't change the tax rate. It doesn't change. Is it just an accounting thing?
I don't know, Maria.
Yeah, I think it just puts another $1 million on the bottom line of the education fund. I mean, I think they're trying to reflect the cost of the program. We've had years gone by where we've had to add money to state place students, it goes both ways. So I believe that's all it is, it's just trying to get the best estimate for it.
Okay, thank you.
And that's one that can wildly swing. So are people good with keep pulling that into budget adjustment? Any objections? Okay, well, let's do that. And then the next one was on page 3, the $11 million for the Brattleboro retreat, and Tiff went and did a little investigative work while we were on break, and she's like, what about that?
Well, I checked in with a couple members of the healthcare committee to see, I just wanted to make sure they were okay with this. They had some questions, and I believe we'll be talking with Nolan sometime between now and noon, and I think we have to just put a hold on this until we get feedback from them.
And they may choose to just keep it in the FY 26 so the
Yeah.
committee, because so the committee can have more conversations about it. So,
And this relates to the memo that we got.
That's right.
And it sounds like 11 million, but then it's reduced to 6.7 million. So,
that was last year's memo.
That was, yeah.
okay, I didn't look at it.
And,
Okay,
but
Yeah,
it was a similar amount.
Yeah.
So I've sent them that memo and they would like to just
Right.
have a conversation,
okay,
about it.
Right.
all right, makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that too. So Stephanie Barrett sent us the memo and it was for the close of business for calendar year 2023. So as an example of what that it can look like. In 2023, you might recall, she said they had a lot of offsets and Brattleboro Retreat owed them some money somewhere else. And so we didn't actually get one of these pieces of language, but I think in past years we've gotten. Dave, do you remember, does this seem like something we've done when you were on
Yes.
folks before too?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so holding on this is fine. We get more information, and then the third one was the $3 million from the HFA, who were in the room and nodded, yes, that's fine. The 3 million reversion part. And then I asked Jim to check in with Chair Marcotte about because it's EB5 and that's a commerce issue. And Jim, do you want to report on that one?
Yeah, they're aware of the settlement. Chair happens to be from the kingdom, so very familiar with it, and had no issues with it because it was part of the settlement that we are obligated to pay. We paid a big chunk here, as the secretary mentioned to us earlier, and this is payment 2. So it sounded like the administration had meant to put it in BAA and didn't catch it till later, and we're putting it in the C section of the next budget. So it is what it is.
If I may,
Yes.
I don't know if this is germane for the question of what we do right now, but as folks were testifying, I was thinking, our weatherization crews with the Office of Economic Opportunity
Okay.
through our community action programs does
Okay.
probably the bulk of weatherization. And I thought, gee, they're not turning money over. I'm making an assumption. They apparently don't have workforce issues, or somebody somewhere would be saying there's a lot of unspent money, should it revert here, there, or everywhere. And I just wondered if maybe that 3 million were with the weatherization crews, if it would be utilized as opposed to someone who doesn't do it all the time, trying to find contractors, et cetera. Just a thought. And again,
No, I appreciate that. I'm trying to find the correlation between and the settlement that the AG settled on with the EB5 issue and adding money to weatherization. So if you can help bridge the two, I'm all ears.
Oh, Tiff.
Well, I believe that we actually did have to repurpose weatherization money.
Okay, is that the relation?
It was ARPA.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
All I'm focusing on here is do we make that second payment
Right.
to EB5, and I think you kind of have to
Yeah.
for the lawsuit settlement. The weatherization conversation, if we're reverting money back in another area, I guess we need to continue that conversation. I think that's a question.
Yes, Lynn. Lynn?
Oh, yes, thank you. I personally am, well, my first comment was going to be on this EB5 thing. I don't think we have any choice. We have a settlement, the Attorney General decided it. The only thing that we have as a choice, and it's not our choice, is whether the 4 million in the final payment can be made or not made based on those green cards. But this $3 million has to be paid no matter what, because that's what the settlement was. But my first issue that I wanted to talk about was on the Brattleboro retreat. my personal comment, and this is really something that has to do with something Stephanie said, that the feds don't want to have long-term. They do not want to pay long-term for any kind of institutional type of situation like this, the IMD payments.
Yes, yeah,
So it has to be paid within 30 days. And if Medicaid is the secondary insurance after whatever the primary is, whether it's Medicare or it's Blue Cross or it's Metropol, whoever it is, you are going to have a lag time there anyway with Medicaid, but you're really going to have a lag time since it's the secondary. So, the reconciliation process could take some time, but we really should be aware that you can't maximize your global commitment if it's over 30 days payment. So we want to really, I think that was a warning that we want to get it done as sooner rather than later. You may want to
I
clarify.
don't remember
that.
anything about 30 days having to pay it. It's 60 days to pay it, Dave?
Well, they said there's a limit of 60 days.
Oh, that's the staying. So, right, they won't pay for anything over 60 days. Do they pay for the first 60 days? I didn't ask that question.
If there's no Medicare, I presume they have to.
Yeah,
But Medicaid is payer of last resort.
right.
They would bill whatever insurance that might exist. But I didn't catch the 30-day thing.
No, I didn't hear her say that they have to be paid in 30 days.
You have to pay, yeah. That's what
I
I
didn't hear
wrote
that. I didn't hear
down.
that.
Yeah, so what's the 60 days, David?
She testified that they cannot, due to the federal regulations and the waiver, they're limited to 60 days of care.
Yeah.
After that, it's all general fund.
Yes. Yeah.
But there was nothing about you have to pay Medicaid within 30 days.
That's what I thought I heard her say.
Maria.
So regarding the 60 days, I just found this thing, I'm gonna quickly read it to you, that's okay.
Yeah.
In 2018, Vermont again amended its 1115 waiver to become the first state in the country to receive Medicaid funding for short-term 60 days or fewer IMD states, provided to otherwise eligible Medicaid beneficiaries with diagnosis of serious mental illness and or severe emotional disturbances.
Okay.
So 60 days that's what Stephanie
Right,
testified to, but it doesn't speak about.
when you have to pay them.
Exactly.
Right. So my question is,
All right,
But
I
it-
must have heard it wrong. I think,
yeah, I think
that
so,
makes-
that's okay. If somebody is there, and I don't know if anybody can answer this question or not. If they're there for 70 days, does Medicaid pay for the first 60 and then we pay for the other 10?
I believe so.
Okay.
That's the way I read.
That's the way you read it,
That's the
okay.
way I read it, yeah.
Does that make sense to you, Dave?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Excuse me.
and they will bill a primary insurance, whatever it may
First.
be, first,
Right.
and then Medicaid would be the source.
right. Right, so really, a lot of this 11 million is the stuff that's over 60 days and forensic stays.
And so Maria, am I correct in that this applies to expenses incurred from January 2024 to December 2024?
Yes, it's a calendar year.
So it's not as if these are expenses that, they've been waiting on for an additional 6
Right.
months. It's,
Right.
it is a true up based on the end of the calendar year.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
So I've heard from the committee again, and the chair doesn't have time to look at this until lunchtime. So
Okay,
I may come back more.
okay. Great. Okay.
Thank
Glenn, are
you.
you good? Okay,
I'm all good. I think.
all right, so that's a hold. And did we decide on the 3 million?
Is there any objection to making the payment rather than the insurance fund for the?
So it's reverting the VHFA, which VHFA is fine with. We had living proof in the room.
Right.
And then paying that off.
And just further question, if we weren't using this reversion, where would the payment come from? I missed that.
Probably general
It
fund.
would be a deficit in the liability fund. which will ultimately have to pay back.
Okay.
I mean, it's
So
not
this is
that-
just found money.
Yes,
Yeah.
For this purpose.
Right.
Or
Right.
this is the suggestion
yes.
Right.
for this found money.
Right, I mean, it doesn't, I mean, money can come from anywhere, but the payment's gotta be made. And it makes sense to keep the fund, it's an insurance fund.
Yeah, yeah,
insurance.
yeah, no, I
So it
just-
makes sense to fill it when you can, but it's, the payment will get made either way. But if you have a deficit, then we're just gonna have to find a way to fill it.
Right, and again, as a general comment, not as a, not
Yeah, yeah.
as, not as an advocacy point, but
Yeah.
Right.
we could have used the $87 million that are being pushed forward. They could have pulled the 3 million from that source.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Many sources.
Yeah, yeah, so they just found this, it was awfully convenient,
Sure.
and it wasn't gonna get used for anything else. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
I'm just,
Sometimes, you reach into that winter coat that you haven't worn in a year and you pull out a $20 bill. That's the best.
It's a good feeling.
I haven't gotten a $3 million bill yet, but Okay, so, those were the three items, and then there was just one more on the original language. From. Let me see what section is 70 something or other. 78. It was at the top of page 58 on the one we got from Adam. And I'd asked Wayne to go show this to Alice because it had related to the cash fund. Alice, I'm as chair of corrections and institutions because that would be there. And I'll just read you what she wrote back. She said, I worked with our legal counsel, John Gray, on the language of the cash fund in section 78. This is more than a technical change. It will involve a policy decision. I would ask you not to put the proposed language in the BAA and let our committees work through this policy decision and put language in either the capital bill or your big bill later. So unless anybody has a big objection to that, I'm going to recommend that we take that section out.
that was section 78.
78. And page 58 if you're using Adams. Okay. So Maria, you're good
Yes.
on that? Okay, section 78. So let me just see in the back of this language again, were there any other language? Do you see where it is?
Yeah, no, it was, there was a question, I mean, underlying all the conversation. I can understand where she's coming from.
Yes.
Because a capital allocation can be held for many, many moons, many years.
Right,
Before it's used.
right.
And I can understand why they would want to talk through. If you borrow, isn't it, if you borrow money for a project, if the project is delayed and delayed and delayed, that money is still held until the project is ready. And I don't know what the time frame is,
Right.
but
We've sometimes said 2 years, or we've had this cash fund will, when we get to FY 26, we'll have somebody come in and talk to us about it. Because it seems to change every year.
And it gets confusing.
It gets confusing. There are things that people love to hate. There are things people love. It's just,
I just know
Yes.
locally, money that's come from the capital fund. From the state to Waterbury.
Right.
Has sometimes had a deadline of several
That's right.
years that it has to be used by
Yeah.
a certain point,
right,
and then it gets extended and
Right.
whatnot, but
Then funding and storage, then we have a process, they have a process of checking up on that and then taking back that spending authority, because the bonds aren't issued until the work is ongoing. So it's just authority up to a
Right.
certain point.
right.
And
Well-
they'll sweep that.
Yeah, and we also, when I was first on corrections and institutions 8 years ago, we capitalized the engineering costs, which are really soft costs, and that's now been taken out, and that was going into the cash fund. So and then people throw other things into the cash fund that have nothing to do with other stuff, and so we'll talk about that
sure.
then. And Lynn, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. I think that there's something similar to Wayne. We had what they used to call the repo. We would have
Yes.
Catherine would go through and check out all the things that were over 2 years old or something, and we,
The BAA version.
they
Yeah, it
would
was like their version of
come back.
reversions, yeah.
Yeah. So there's nothing would sit out there for very long unless it had a very specific, like the ARPA money probably had a very specific
Right.
kind of thing. But yeah,
Right.
they do this regularly in the
Right.
capital bill, so.
Right, exactly. So we'll let them deal with that later. Yes, go ahead.
We didn't talk about page 19 in the grading language that we got yesterday. The Department of Corrections Facility Work Program Strategic Plan.
But we did talk about it.
Is that?
And then there was a question about me just checking in to make sure that they.
Yeah, so were you gonna check with
I
Alex
did,
on
I
that?
checked, but that's why I got caught up in the cash fund conversation last night.
Oh.
When I walked in
Okay.
there, but yeah, they're okay.
Okay, they're okay with that?
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's kind of like, so. Okay, yes, I had written okay by that. And the other ones in Grady's language from last time, it's just not the best.
We talked about holding off on the,
We're gonna hold
change
on.
on the, BGAP.
Yes, that is definitely a markup.
Although I did, last night, walking back to the State House with the vice chair of the committee. And I mentioned, I couldn't have the details.
Yeah.
Oh, if it's Vita, and she seemed to understand more than I did.
Okay,
It may not be a big deal, but, they haven't had a chance.
right, and so we want to
If you
get.
want, I can run up and talk to them, but if you, that would be.
That would be Tom's.
Yeah, or you can say.
Okay,
This career.
can you check in with Chair Marcotte about this thing on page 2? There's 5 million. Reducing the B gap to 5 million, using 2 million for Vita.
I let this down, and I did not see this one.
Okay.
If they're not comfortable, we can wait.
We're happy to wait, but if they wanted to move now, we can do that if they're happy. I don't know if they're talking to their committee about it. We kind of like to do these things with some committee conversation if it's possible. Okay, and we're holding off for the moment on the calendar. Definitely. There's the, so Maria, if we approve the $3 million. Oh, I did hear definitely not to do, now I'm on page 4 and 5, which is the fund transfers. And we took care of this 3 million for the state liability insurance fund. That was one of the 2 new ones. And the other one was section E on the top of page 5, the TIB fund for 2.3 million. And I chatted with the vice chair of transportation this morning. He said, don't put that in here. It's going to be part of a larger transportation bill.
Okay.
So I don't know if you see that, Maria, at the top of page 5, number E, letter E. Number E.
Is that in
It's the grades from yesterday. So if we want to put everything else in, that was the only other one.
Okay, I'm sorry, so yes, so.
Page 5,
And are you agreeing to?
letter, we're not agreeing to E. They asked, the transportation vice chair said, please don't do that in the budget adjustment.
Okay, perfect, yeah, I see that, okay.
Yeah, okay, so,
Yep.
so we're good on the 3 million for the liability insurance, and we're not good on that one, and I think everything else is already in there.
With the workforce education down at the bottom, that the language previously. The 2.6 million.
Yes, yeah.
That was.
Yeah.
So that's.
So that, what gets confusing here is this underlines all the stuff that was underlined in our version, and then it shows up again in the big bill the same way, which I don't get, but. I did confirm that they don't get reverted twice, which is the one thing I will. So now we can do that whole section, just minus the TID.
Okay, yeah, that's. Okay.
Okay. Okay, and that means we can do section D 102 at the top of page 9, because that was a 3 million reversion from Vermont Housing Finance. Good with the blueprint, date change. Section E100, we were okay with number 2, the 1100. The 50 million, we go out to 3 years, but we are not okay with number 4. So I don't know if we can just transfer some of it and not all of it.
Okay, so we're on page 2, not,
We're on page 12.
well. Trying to send
Number
emails.
2.
I'm trying to send emails at the same time. Okay, so here I am, I'm with you.
Okay, so we're good with number 2,
Yes.
and we're not good with number 4 at the top of page 13.
2, 3.
Or we'll just keep waiting till, it's not necessarily bad, it's just not gonna be a
Well,
budget
for this
adjustment.
moment.
For this moment, it's not what we want, yeah. And then we were okay on pages 14 and 15.
Hey,
Yes,
I'm just gonna look at the explanation here. Expands the use of the appropriation as a match for all federal funds, not just FEMA. For the disasters in 2021, 2025.
we want to learn a little bit more about that.
Let's issue. Thank you.
Okay, and then,
And
Next.
may I just step back to the number 2 on line 9?
yeah,
Um, So denied claims related to the disasters in fiscal years 24, 25, or to fund identified states. So this doesn't, we had an explanation of this. I guess I'll go back and look, where this was from Douglas, correct?
right, yeah,
So it wasn't, whereas number 4 seems to be just curious about things like, I know that the state has run out of funds or is behind on buyouts. The state focused on buyouts quite a bit. As
Right.
opposed to other options like lifting homes and whatnot.
Right.
But there's not enough, there hasn't been enough money in the buyouts to fulfill.
and some of that is the ARPA money that we were able to claw back, and you're gonna use some of that for the 26 million for FEMA buyouts. This is, I believe I heard Douglas say that this was also helping the municipalities who, they're all kind of running out of money to help administer and do the work. I have more notes, go ahead.
I think I also remember though, they had limited service positions that, that they
Right.
wanted to be able to extend.
Right, including the cost of related limited service
Right.
positions.
Because these aren't, because the way the buyouts work, they go to the municipality, they don't go to individuals.
Right. And the municipalities are
Not
stretched.
complicated at all.
No,
Mm.
I keep it simple when you can make it complicated. Okay, so. We agreed with pages 14 and 15. And on page 16. This was the language about the childcare and using the human services caseload reserve, and Brady's gonna amend that language on line 16 to say. The Secretary of Administration shall unreserve and transfer, because that's the order that you have. And that's that, so that. Let's see, this is a little bit more here. Section 49 was the pilot project
And
for the disabilities. Yep.
I have a question about the explanation on page 17.
Yep.
If this is, in order for this to be a technical correction, it must be, to me, it must seem like it was assumed that the human services caseload reserve funds were already made available to support CCFAB, and that this is a clarification. Because otherwise, it's not a technical correction.
So I don't know how to quite answer that, because it's the first time we've had a childcare special fund. So in a way, it is a clarification, and in a way, it could be new. Because we've never had this before.
Okay, technical correction and language. All right. No, but I mean, we're clear and we want the message out that this moving of funds does not damage the child care funds
That's right.
at all. It's that the caseload reserves are, and the amount of money that's being brought in is sufficient. And this is a one-time
There's no,
move of money.
there's no money moving here. What this is authorizing the Human Services Caseload Fund, which has been around for a long time. Has not, it might be able to be used for child CCFAP now anyway, but we want to ensure
This is
that it
ensuring
is.
that it's an entitlement.
Yes.
This is keeping the
Entitlement,
entitlement piece of
right.
this strong. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly, Wayne.
And since this is the first time it's being done, then this is new language.
That's right.
And setting up the process correctly, unreserved and transfer is technically correct and needs to go in.
Right. So I think we are now well covered on that front. Okay. 18 is the 2.8 million to VHCB to complete the pilot project. You talked about the disability housing. 19 was the language about Department of Corrections and a strategic plan, and Trevor has checked that out with corrections, and they're all fine with that, expecting that in there. The page 21, this was language that's associated with that $10 million. And we want to have a little bit of oversight and accountability, so it does include a plan to just achieve sustainability to be eligible to apply for funds. And we wanted to be sure that all the organizations that who could be using it, right? Yeah.
And AHS is fine with this language.
Okay. And that's the end of that section. We also have language from Grady back on 129.25 that started with section 49. This is the first time it came in with language. That's something you can, it's Grady now. It's reviewing your language to make sure that we're all on the same page, as it were.
I heard the Nixon JFO just in reference to Rep. Stevens' comment about the explanation. There are technical corrections in the caseload reserve section, and then there's the substantive change. So the explanation was just clarifying that there are technical corrections such as removing the hyphen from the word sub-account. And then separately from that, there's the substantive change for the allowable uses.
Thank you.
That's great. So we're just starting the section, the language pieces, Grady, that you sent us. We're just reviewing again on January 29th. You just said we're in this. At about 13 pages. And so this has, the first one is that 10 million, it's actually appropriating the money.
Where are you?
I'm at the top of page 1, it's dated 1/29/2025 at 3:32 p.m. Now it starts to be 1100. So people have that. Some people have that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just started a binder so I could find it. Yeah, just the section 49 at the top. So this is this 10 million.
49?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not,
Earlier.
it's an early. No, that's not the one. Yeah, you should have another one.
And just Grady on the 29th.
Right. Ready on the 29th. So
Got it.
hey, that's the one. So anyway, this was we increased the 4 million to 10 million. This is the actual appropriation. We just read the language for it in the section we just went over. So all that is that. So we had said okay to that. The next one is the positions. Do we have a title for the Attorney General position?
Yes.
Okay. So we had the Defender General, and then we had the Attorney General, we need a position, we need a title, what's the title?
Court diversion assistant director.
Court Diversion Assistant Director?
Yes, and confirming the position is classified.
Okay.
Can I,
You have a question, go ahead.
just before we met again, I believe I cited the chair and vice chair of judiciary. And then separately cited, member of the governor's legal team that were maybe going to huddle and talk.
And they did,
They did, okay.
and that was when we went back out, and what we heard was that they wouldn't oppose.
Okay.
And,
I have not gotten any updates.
okay, is that, am I asked?
I think that's fair.
And I did ask whether it had been discussed in the committee, and the committee had discussed it, because that was the other piece we wanted to be sure it wasn't, you know, an individual committee discussed it, and I think it was unanimous,
Yeah.
the entire committee supports it. So, that's what I had. Okay, so if we're good, let's keep that in. And now we have a title that Grady will put in. Okay. And we already had the Defender General in there. And we had the Defender General here, so let's go there. Section 66 on page 4. It's the judiciary parts that are highlighted. Grady, can you?
It's repurposing the 50,000 reversion.
Oh, that's right.
You know.
You used to construct the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think we thought that was okay, so we'll check that off. Yeah. This is. We'll start to do with this is section 77 in the. Grady, can you remind us of section 77?
Yes, so this is, the came in the government, highlighted parts of the treasurer's technical edits.
That's right, okay. And Lynn, you had seen this. And you were okay with that, I think. Because you turned in the treasurer's technical edits, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Took a shell and turned it into
right,
a,
on the writers and no haircuts and whatever, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good with that, section 77, all right.
yes.
Is this the one that Grady took?
Haircut, yeah.
This is one.
He's still not getting a haircut, so.
It's removed it from statute.
There. The power that Grady has. And then we had discussed the diploma program in the high school. This was the language to get the kids what they need, so I think we're all in agreement on that. And then the SNAP was using federal funds. That's the language to help ensure that DCF uses this federal funds, and I think we all agreed on that. We also agreed on the marriage license, a repeal of the sunset. It's like a double negative. And then on page 11, we've now changed that. So that page is going away because we have new language for that. That was the $10 million language, and we now have the language, and that's not it. So you can just cross off page 11. Page 12, I already had it checked off about the judiciary, the 800 to upgrade the network wiring and security systems in county courthouses. We talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, we had some clarifying emails back and forth with judiciary, but Jim and I.
We talk, and there's, they've got it broken down by
Yeah.
state house, if anyone wants to see what Trevor has.
Yeah, I have that information.
How many yards of cat six?
No,
whatever?
not
Okay.
quite.
$8 for the courthouse.
Okay, all right, good. That's
But
not
they
good.
have it broken down by. Some 50,000.
Some 60.
Or they're bigger, you know, but it's all.
Okay, great. Okay, so we had agreed on that. Tom presented the Sergeant at Arms, and I have a check mark after that, so I think we've agreed on the Sergeant at Arms piece. And that's the end of that section. So we've now gone through Brady's 2 sections of language. Are you pretty clear, you and Maria, on what we've done?
Yep.
Okay, and we took out section 78
So
from Alice. Yeah, you got
Yes,
that?
yeah, it's,
Okay,
I'm gonna track down.
we'll track down the B gap thing.
103,
Right. And then we're also gonna wait on the 11 million until we hear something. So those are 2 that we're gonna save for the afternoon. And are there any other language pieces, Maria or Grady or anybody else in the room that you're not sure whether we've agreed to it at this point? The language from Adam? There was some, there was some pieces at the end that we had spent less time on. I think. Yes, so I'm looking at Adam's, it's section 73.
Page 54.
I'll get back to you on that, Aaron. So 54 and 55, and what I have is is that open? And I don't know that I don't think we need to do the e-board one yet. That feels like a policy change. That B3, the e-board may unreserve an amount, et cetera, et cetera. We really haven't talked about that, right?
Yeah, it's the recommendation of JFO that it's not over the budget.
Okay, and the same with the one above it as well? The General Assembly may specifically unreserve and appropriate.
Yes, so the entirety of sections.
Okay, so we're gonna
Hold
hold
on,
on.
73.
Great, we're gonna put it in the FY26 budget. Good. I feel much better about that.
Yeah.
This was the language that Adam gave us. The governor's recommended budget, whenever you find Adam's,
Tuesday, right?
whatever the last time was you saw anything from Adam. I'm not using yours, Grady, at the
It's a
moment.
bigger package.
It's the original.
It's the second original language. We probably got this, I have it on 1/14/25, but I think it's been posted since then too, but that's the language I'm using.
If I make the committee, so
Yep.
this is language that is in the governor's recommended
Right.
budget adjustment. So you can find it in that document.
Right,
Got
and the date I got it was, because we had one we got on the 10th, and then they updated it to the 14th, so I'm ignoring the one from the 10th and using the one from the 14th. So this is section 73, we are gonna hold the whole thing for FY26. Okay. And then in section 74, this was the increase from 50 to 100,000 and 100 to 200, and that's new. And did we agree that we were gonna do that?
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
Yep. I don't think we ever talked about section 75. I have no notes on it. This is the treasurer in.
It just brings the, wait a minute.
Reflects current practice in accordance with GASB principles.
Yes, basically,
Yeah.
it just brings the statute up to current practice.
Okay. Sounds like a good idea. You recommend that?
Yes,
Okay, everybody good with that? Okay. This, and then 76 is that transfer versus appropriate, which is again GASB principles, and I think we've talked about that.
yeah, and that's another statute. It's gonna reflect current practice, it updates
Right.
this.
Right. Okay, so we're good on that, 76? 77 was also a treasurer thing.
And it also brings the statute up to current practice with those two minor changes that we got from, that I said, Brady, from Gavin.
Right. Okay, is everybody good on section 77? Okay, section 78, we just talked about from corrections institutions, we're taking that out. And it'll be dealt with next year, budget. We already did the traumatic brain injury removal, and there's the reversion. The technology modernization fund was just added to carry forward authority, and I believe we all agreed that that was okay. I didn't hear any flags on that. And then we're at effective dates, which will be adjusted. So we may have a couple more pieces of language, but that is really the language. We'll probably have one more piece of language.
If I may, for the committee, just going back to its caseload reserve language.
Yeah.
There will be one further technical update to that. So in what is current statute sub one, which will now be reflected as sub D sub one. There's a reference to the comprehensive annual financial report, which is now called the annual comprehensive financial report.
Somebody spent time thinking about that?
So I'll be supervising that. I can bring that language before we finish over.
Is a haircut involved in that one? No. Okay, so we have that, and then we'll have GA language also to talk about. I think those are the last two pieces of language. And so we'll talk about those this afternoon. I think we have done all the numbers we're going to do for right now. That will be an afternoon conversation. Emily updated the how we spend the 14 million, because it turned out that we had a little extra here, and then the GA program is only 1.8 million, not 1.9 million. So we had a little bit more money to Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. So we'll look at that this afternoon, and I think those are really the final pieces that we need to about. Unless I'm forgetting anything, and I'm counting on Maria and Grady to let me know if we are.
Good.
So with that, and some of us have joined fiscal committee at noon, and we're going to start at 1:15. Is that enough time, or is 1:30 better? Let's do 1:30. We'll just do 1:30. Because we're going to be coming from, and Emily's going to present to us, among other things that we're doing, it's sort of an organizational meeting, but we'll hear the same federal funds presentation that she gave us yesterday. And if you want to watch and hear, because you have nothing else you'd like to do, you're welcome to watch during fiscal. I guess you can have that running if need be. No, we can't have it running. Aaron's going to be running it in the other room, so you can watch that drive. We will not run it here. So yeah, does anybody have anything else? Tiff, you're good?
No, I'm good. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Hey, we're doing okay. Good work, everybody.
Just a reminder, I'll be on Zoom.
You'll be on
This
Zoom,
afternoon.
yes, so 1:30, Dave. That gives you a little extra time to
Yep.
get there. Appreciate the reminder. So let's go live. Thank you.